Details are quite preliminary at the moment, Joe. We do know that that driver is a male. We don't know too much more about the situations of when he was driving or how that actually was affected. But it has been a growing frustration from SES crews about motorists driving through flood-affected areas and flood-affected roads. And they put out a strong message today that if you do see an area of land or a road that is covered in floodwaters, to avoid it, and perhaps doing that in an attempt to combat a spirit of complacency where people may think that they may have the vehicle or the power to actually go through that particular area of water, but seemingly being underestimating the actual sheer force of it and what has resulted in some of those rescues overnight. Well, if you had a look behind me, it would seem to be quite a beautiful day as the Northern Beaches begins to get on with its Monday morning. But this particular area was affected by some of those floodwaters last night. There's actually a waterway that goes in Narrabeen from the ocean into what's called the Narrabeen Lagoon, and that area is a large waterway where there are homes on the outskirts of that, and quite some low-lying areas that were affected by those rising floodwaters last night. It was those homes around the southern side that were told to evacuate by the SES, and there was also a relocation centre that was set up in Mona Vale about 5 minutes from here because of the sheer intensity of that water that was coming through. Now, there are gauges on the outskirts here of the lagoon. Some of the water at the moment is just sitting about the 1 metre mark, but last night as those waters were coming through, that actually doubled, getting up to the 2 metre mark. So it does show you and does reflect how quickly that water came through, but also how it receded. Many locals this morning, some that I have spoken to, said that what made it quite difficult to get around was also the fallen tree branches that had gone across the road, and many of the workers and locals around here weren't really told or aware that this weather system was actually going to come through quite quickly. So some concerns there, but at the moment, as the sun begins to shine a light on Narrabeen, it really seems to be business as usual. Well, obviously, from the conditions last night, there's been some real treacherous conditions. Several stations around Sydney recorded millimetres of up to 200 millimetres of rain in the gauges. So areas such as Lucas Heights, Holsworthy, also Badgerys Creek. So some really large water systems that had come and filled the gauges. That deluge really going for quite a few days. It didn't really stop yesterday. Today, though, because of those weather effects, we have 38 schools which have been closed because of that. And we've also got quite a bit of commuter chaos this morning. Many of the lines, the train lines, have been affected throughout Sydney from an array of reasons. There are some issues with power today, so some of the trains have been affected by that. Also, fallen tree lines across the tracks, which has really caused some lengthy delays, particularly around areas such as Strathfield. And the other area as well, we do have some landslips. There's one in Artarmon and also further north around Leura and Katoomba in the Blue Mountains, I should say. So those landslips really contributing to some of the commuter chaos that we have been seeing across Sydney this morning.